Hi, my name is Fernando. I'm the illustrator for AbyssalBrews, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the painting process for this cycle. This is my first illustration for AB. The process usually starts by talking to Matt and exchanging ideas, not just about the visuals, but about the systems and what they're about, what sets them apart. Those are the things that I seek to illustrate in the painting. Ultimately, the goal of these illustrations is to serve as a companion piece for Matt's systems, so the focus has to always be on visually portraying what's in the text. The cycle is a death system, but what makes it special is that we're seeking to make 5th edition death more fun by giving the players a chance to still participate in the action, rather than just lay down and roll saves. When it came to inspirations, first I looked at famous death scenes like La Pietà and Superman holding Supergirl at the end of Crisis. But the point of the system is not death itself, rather fighting to the death. It's that epic moment in a fight where you can catch a second wind and go out fighting. So the inspiration focus shifted to Boromir's last stand in the Lord of the Rings, and that clicked much better. We believe in being inclusive, and that representation enhances the enjoyment of entertainment, whether it's a game or a movie or a book. So the idea of a female POC as our hero was always in the forefront of our minds. We also didn't want to portray a typical fighter archetype. Matt suggested a Pact of the Blade Warlock. That gave me the idea of setting the scene at night, since the signature spell would allow me to do some really interesting lighting on the scene. He also insisted on using some of the less stereotypical enemies, since everyone uses orcs and goblins, so we settled on gnolls, and it made sense to set the fight in a forest. I chose to use more muted colors on this painting. Normally, I use a more colorful palette, and you can have a nice scene that is still full of color. But since we're talking about death, I didn't want to be too colorful or cheerful. Also, making the spell effect the single source of bright color on the scene makes it stand out even more. Let's talk composition. Putting the gnoll on the foreground allows me to frame the protagonist in a way that makes her look smaller. This gives you a sense that she's fighting against the odds. She's the underdog. She's not just outnumbered, but she's also overpowered by her foes. It also gives the painting more depth. I knew I had to leave the left part of the image dark in order to put text on it, which is another reason why there's a foreground gnoll shrouded in darkness. The lack of detail on the gnoll is by design, so it doesn't take attention away from the hero. You'll notice that the gnoll's massive torso flows into his arm, which flows into his axe, and the axe basically points at the hero. I always want my illustrations to have good flow like this. Guiding the audience through the painting is a good way to not overwhelm them, highlight what's important, and it's less of a strain on their eyes. As you'll see later in the video, I struggled a lot with the background. I'm mostly a character artist, and I'm trying to push myself to do more background work. One of the things I had an issue with here was pushing back the background to highlight the hero more. The key was to brighten the background. Elements that are lighter and more desaturated tend to be pushed back by our eyes and brain, and the more detailed objects with better contrast are pushed forward. The only reason I was able to crack that was by using a little trick where I put a color layer on top of all the other layers and fill it with white. This turns the image into a grayscale image, and once it's in grayscale, I can focus more on the values. That's when I noticed that the background basically had the same values as the middle ground, and all I had to do to push it back was brighten it. I'm going to wrap up by covering some of the tools I use. All my illustrations are done on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro using Procreate. Usually I tend to use the same 2 or 3 brushes on every painting, but for this illustration I went a little crazy and used a bunch of different brushes I had just bought off the ArtStation marketplace. The most useful ones that I have since continued to use are a set inspired by Studio Ghibli, which is what I use for the grass, bushes, and leaves. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope you got something out of it, even if it was just a bit of entertainment to pass the time. We do love to interact with our community, so if you have any questions, critiques, etc., feel free to leave us a comment here in the video, or contact us through social media or our website. We hope we can bring you more of these videos in the future, so click subscribe if that's something you're interested in. Or don't. We just want you to be happy.